if you watch Disney Channel, I know this is like late in the game, but I feel like everyone needs to know about Andi Mack. So I ended up watching Andi Mack once, weirdly enough, like 2 years ago, because my roommate, he had the TV tied to the cable thing in college, so we had some channels. So got to watch Disney Channel. It was like 2 a.m. He left, and he was like, "Oh, you can use the TV if you want." I watched Andi Mack, and like immediately I was hooked. And so let me tell you, if you haven't seen Andi Mack, the episode that was coming out was it was the episode where the girl finds out that her parents are actually her grandparents, and her mother, who she thought was her sister, the person she thought was her sister was actually her mother, and then come to find that the mother's husband had left her. And so I guess she was embarrassed, so then she didn't feel comfortable with the responsibility, so she pawned her off to her parents, and then so her grandparents were the caretakers, and the mother just did whatever, I guess. She visited every now and then. I don't know what else she did. I don't remember too much of it. But like imagine that. To me, that was transcendent, because you never see like actual problems happen in Disney Channel. You always see like these cute little problems that are like fixed by the end of the episode. But this was like a long spanning thing, and I've never seen in Disney Channel people be like, "Oh yes, my adoptive parent," or anything about divorce, or like I had never seen in Disney Channel someone be a divorced couple. I'd never seen the idea of adoption, I guess, aside from Jesse, but even then it wasn't really about the adoption or anything. It was just, there are all these different kids being taken care of by this nanny. Like, that was it. Like, it wasn't that big of a thing, but that, with Andi Mack, it was very, like, woke already. It was talking about things that I wanted to invest in. I felt like it was really actually making an effort in talking about things. And if you don't know, I guess, Andi Mack was the show that had the first gay kid in it. And like, I remember reading about that, but I didn't really watch Disney at the time. We only had Disney XD. And so like, I didn't end up being able to watch the show. But I would have given it my support, because like, that's wild. It was the first show to have a gay kid. That's crazy. And it just does so much. I ended up watching more episodes, and every episode was really worth it. It really helped in everything. Like, it was just, the girl herself would like talk about her actual problems with, I guess, when she thought was her sister, was her mom. And she talked about her problems. She introspected with her friends, and like, you would really be like, why is this happening? And I think it's unfair that you're doing this way because this person feels that way and stuff like that. And they even had like, one of the gay kid is like Jewish, I think it was. And they were like having his celebration of, or no, they were mourning someone dying, I think. And so there was like all this about that. One of the kids had a panic attack, and they talked about that and getting through that. And then the guy had his little coming out thing to that guy, and he was like, "Oh, okay, cool." They had this episode where this kid brought a gun to school. Not to school, but this kid had a gun. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, it's like, this doesn't sound like it'd be on Disney Channel, This sounds like it'd be on just some real, normal show. And I like that, because it normalizes all these intense things. And like, it's not good, I'm not saying that it's great that they're normalizing all these really intense things, but it's good that they're talking about it, because in the Disney demographic, most of the people are kids. There's some adults that never move on, and that's their only personality, but that's a different point. Disney Channel normally just keeps it lighthearted. And I know that they own Marvel and all those other things now, so it's kind of different now, because you could still kind of tie those things to Disney. But like, even in Brave and stuff like that, it's never that intense. Like, it's like, oh, this person's might die, or, oh no, our video game's gonna get shut down, and then, our game won't exist anymore. Like, it's kind of the concept of dying and stuff like that, but it's never anything like really, really gonna happen. Like, they're gonna work it out in the end. In Frozen, like, nothing bad really happened. I guess, like, the whole world got frozen, but I guess, they worked it through, and they have this charming, funny little snowman, so they're always lighthearted about the things that come up that is the problem in the movie. But Andi Mack, like, that's just, the problems are just happening, and they're live, and they're working through those things. It's not just like, oh, this is gonna be fixed at the end of the episode, or, oh, this is just a pointless filler episode where we're all just angry at our friends because they did this one thing, and now we're friends again. Like, it's like, it talks about, like, being jealous. It talks about, it introduces a different religion. It talks about being gay, the panic attack, and like, all these things. and divorce and adoption. And I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, this was great. And so little did I know that it had been canceled after the first season. And I don't know if it was canceled because people had problems with it. I know that there was kind of a backlash when the gay kid was on it, and people were like, oh, you shouldn't be showing this kid to kids and all this, and you shouldn't be normalizing it. But that was like a couple years ago, so it was a more offensive to people, I guess. But now it's a lot more normalized, so I think that's really cool. But I got canceled after the first season, and then recently I was watching it, like I was staying up till 2 a.m. because this was when it's being aired. Like 2 to 4 a.m., right? Was when Andi Mack was on. And I was like, I'm gonna watch this. I need to watch Andi Mack because I needed my fill with this good show. And then come to find, it had been canceled again after season 2. And apparently, like, I ended up following some of the stars from the show on Instagram. And apparently, like, it's kind of still an ongoing battle to get the show back. Like, because it got canceled after the first season, right? So, like, it was bad. But then I guess people wanted it back enough that they got it back for a second season. And then it got canceled again. But people are like, some of the stars are like, oh, thanks, guys. Like, thanks for showing that you care about our show. Thanks for putting your effort, getting your voice heard, making our voice heard, and fighting for our show. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, why do people keep canceling the show? This show is progress. This show introduces people to topics that are reasonable at a young age. It talks about emotion. It talks about... It's very much about problem solving and diversity and inclusivity, and that's awesome. It talks about so much things that I never would have expected it on a Disney show. Like, as soon as, like, I was floored by the fact that they even had divorce and, like, adoption as, like, and, like, that whole, like, broken up family and being a single mother, like, that was crazy to me already. So, like, you know, that, knowing that they were, like, the people who had the gay kid, and then ending up seeing that episode where the kid has a panic attack, and that episode where they're talking about mourning and different ways of dealing with death, and the kid with the gun, like, there was just so much that you don't see in other shows. Like, you know that there is those other episodes where they're like, oh, you know, that kid's a bad guy, but they do it in such a weird comedic way that, like, when you watch back on old episodes, like in, what was it? That's So Raven and Zack and Cody, when they're like the bad kid, if you look at it back now, like, they're played in such a comedic way. Not like yes, they're intimidating, but they're intimidating to the main character, so we feel we're intimidated too. But, like, in the episode of That's So Raven with, like, the juicer or everything, you know that he was bad, but when you look back and watch that episode, it's kind of comedic in its own way, and everything's played a little lightheartedly. And so when you watch That's So Raven and other shows that are on Disney even now, like, what's that show? The one with the twins, Duff Cameron and then Duff Cameron again, Liv and Maddie, or whatever, and Bizarre. I know those aren't shows on there now, but when you watch them, they're played up. And everyone's expressive and, like, fun and charming, and, like, they're still caricatures of kids, you know? And Andi Mack isn't like that. It's like, yes, this is a problem, this is affecting me, I'm sad, and you see them being sad. It's not like in a cute way that you see them run onto the bed, hug the pillow, and be like, oh, I'm sad, and their mother's like, oh, what's wrong, mija? Like, even Wizards of Waverly Place was kind of played up in a way. Like, everyone is kind of a caricature of who they were supposed to be, and it was overly expressive. Like, you wouldn't notice that when you're a kid, and that's fine. Like, you know, it keeps your attention, it keeps the kid invested. But now, like, when I look back at it as an adult, I'm just like, wow, they're played like this. They're acting well because they're playing these people and they're being really, like, really energetic, and they're not being, like, in the sense of energetic of, like, Blue's Clues and stuff, but they're still being very exaggerated. And so Andi Mack, even watching that now, I was like, no, this is good. Like, it feels like a normal drama. And it's not like it's trying to be dramatic. It's just tackling things from an adult perspective, I guess. Or, like, being played as adults. Like, it's being played as people genuinely being affected by these things. And so it's a really good show. I think it's really worth watching. And knowing that it got canceled once and yet again a second time, despite being a show that I would think would be well loved, you know, because it's very aware, it's very mature. Like, me as an adult, I still enjoyed watching it. And, like, my siblings of the younger demographic did like watching it, cousins, and, like, I mean, even knowing that in the show, they're not in the show, in social media, that they know that they got canceled, and then they know that their fans are fighting for the show. Like, that's good. I like how influential social media is being now. I know that it's bad in a lot of aspects, but knowing that people here can voice their opinion to a massive entertainment industry like Disney and be like, hey, let's get it back, and Disney actually listened and brought the show back. And then I guess they canceled it again, which is bad. But knowing that there still might be a chance for another season, like, I really think more people need to get behind this. This show is really good. It's so progressive and aware, and it's wild. I don't know. It just didn't cross me like a Disney show at first, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to actually have real problems in shows. Like, I watch Bunked now, and I'm like, because that's kind of a little more of a modern show, and I'm like, this is a caricature, and it's very fun and friendly, and like everyone's weird and zany, but Bizarre Arc wasn't like that. It was like, these are kids in school going through these things, being impacted by these serious troubles, and running into real world problems that are possible. Like, people do have panic attacks. People do die while you're still a kid, and you have to get through that. Your parent could be a single parent. Your family tree, or like who is your caretaker, is different, and it's not always your mom and dad. And Disney had this thing about displaying that for such a long time. And it still kind of does, but that was like the one exception. And talking about death, that wasn't really a thing that happened. But then they did it in Andi Mack with the Jewish gay kid, and it was just this whole thing about like culture and like how they perceive death and how they act about it, and just his friends getting accustomed and finding a way to respect that, and accidentally messing up along the way and stuff like that. So it does so much, and I feel like people are really missing out by not watching it or not supporting it. I really think it's just such a good show. I really feel like people need to get behind it. I want to see more of that show, and I like seeing the power behind the youth to have brought it back once and still be fighting to bring it back again, knowing that it was well revered enough by enough people that Disney did bring it back for a second season. That's amazing to me, because Disney already has a ton of money and already has a ton of success. They normally don't have a thing where people fight them for more. So I think that shows in it enough that it was good, because like, you know, every show they have is good in its own way, but for it to have failed and then people want it back, that's unheard of with Disney. You know, like with Disney, everything's already a success to a big enough degree that no one needs to ask for more. But people did, and there's a reason for that. Just everything I said, everything I said about how much it says, and it's in just the one season that it had the first time, it already said a lot, and then with the second season, it said a lot more than it had already, and that's crazy to me. It's kind of like those shows, like, I guess, Steven Universe, and Star vs. the Forces of Evil sometimes, and Gravity Falls, where they have intense topics. And like with those cartoons, it's kind of different. I think one of the biggest, among those, the one that actually does the most in showing things to children in a representable way and in a way that is positive to a degree would be Steven Universe more than the other ones. Like, the other ones just did have some heavy topics, but they didn't really cycle through getting through those things too much. But in Steven Universe, there's like trauma and abusive relationships and homosexuality and mourning, loss, and the way people go through that. And like, it does a lot in somewhat of a kid-friendly way. And this was like Andi Mack. It isn't a cartoon, and that has more of an attention span, because people, when it's a cartoon, like, you normally expect fun and lighthearted, and even then, like, Steven Universe every now and then does have problems, and people don't like it that much, because they're like, oh, you're talking too much about this and that, and that's what I assume would be the problem that Andi Mack faced. Like, they probably wanted just more of those lighthearted shows like Liv and Maddie and Bizarre Vark, where it's just fun and zany, and they have problems, but they're not real problems. So, I don't know. I think if you haven't seen it, give it a shot. Please watch it. I don't see a realm where it doesn't have something for everyone, I guess. Unless you just want to be strictly entertained through fun and zany comedy stuff. If that's like your whole thing, then yeah, I get it. But even if you want to be entertained, if you want something riveting, or if you just want to introduce, or maybe finally find something for a kid that you want that has heavier topics to talk about and to introduce kids to, then Andi Mack, because it's good to have that influence on people and to find relatability in a character, I guess. Like, if I had seen a gay character in a kid's show forever ago, I would have thought that was amazing. I would have probably found help in it if I was a kid whose parents were divorced and watched that and knew that that person, that character, was still normal, going through all those things, was any less than, didn't have anything less than because she only had one parent, that would have helped a lot. My parents aren't divorced, but imagine if your kids, like for a kid, all these things hit so much differently, and to have even just one character on TV, in Disney Channel, to relate to and be like, oh, they're still normal, they're getting through this, or their friend's jealous, or someone died in my family, this character, one of their people died, and they're talking about it, they're getting through it this way. It would do so much. It would show different ways to cope. It would show how to react to things. And just even in those weird situations of what would you do in that situation, or feeling alone, it would help have someone who was isolated in situations that only affect some people, but it would still help just knowing that they could find that relatability to that, even if it's just that in that one show. So, please watch Andi Mack. It's so good. It's so good. It does so much. I don't know. It's really worth it. It really is. But I guess that's all I wanted to say. If you watch it, like, tell me what you love. Tell me your favorite episodes. I haven't seen all the episodes because, again, I don't have Disney Channel. But tell me your favorite episodes. Tell me do I need Disney Plus to watch all this now? I don't know. I need to watch it. I need to watch all of it in its full entirety, because I've only seen like 7 episodes, so I need to know if all of them are this deep and important, or if I only somehow stumbled upon the only relevant episodes that mattered and like influenced things. But I don't know. Let me know.